All right. So I hope you're doing fine, everyone, today. Hello, teacher. How are you? You? Okay, good. Thank you very much. I hope you're good as well. Righty, righty. So we are going to start today's topic that is quite interesting in my opinion. We're going to talk about register, about lexical semantic and cohesion, of course. So guys, you may probably already know what cohesion is, what register is, lexical semantics is. However, we are going to have a deep look at it. Okie So today we will consider register and its features, as well as we will have a look at the terms as fair registration or register mixing in our everyday speech also. As well as we will have a look at the syntactic notions of equivalence and opposition. And in the very end, we will discuss the notion of cohesion. Yuppie. So, as you may know, we have we know from the theories of disessure or theories of errors that language is kind of a social phenomenon. Yeah, I probably remember. I hope you can hear me, guys, properly. Yeah. And the very interesting thing that also not only the language itself, but the style is also dependent on the language, on the society a lot. So we will have a look at why it is so, why style relies on it that much. Yeah. First of all, you may remember the types of the style that we discussed previously in the first or on the second lecture. I don't remember. It was week 1 or week 2. I don't really remember. So actually, everything that is in the language hugely dependent on the society, as we know. And style, especially the types of styles in stylistics, yeah, and the types of styles in the text, they are hugely rooted with society. You may probably remember the types of styles. Who may recall them? What are the types of the styles? Yes.
Can I?
Yep,
Sure.
please.
Newspaper, academic, official, colloquial, and palace letters.
Absolutely. Thank you, Arsolda. So,
And individual,
as
of
you
course.
may see, thank you. So, as you may see, we have the different styles, and you may probably understand when to utilize those styles, and you probably know by default, yeah, by your default system, that style suggests usage of a particular linguistic means. Yeah, for instance, in academic style, we do not use particular language, we do not use particular linguistic items, especially the colloquial speech is not welcomed in academic style, or as well as publicistic style, or as well as the newspaper style or official style. They do not include the colloquial style, colloquial speech, sorry, or vulgarisms in them. Yeah. So from that, we may understand that why linguistic meaning, why style, any kind of style is are highly dependent on society, on social context. So when we are talking about register, we suggest that different styles and different registers of the language, they are used in different contexts. So the context actually identifies which style and which register we should be using in while our interaction, whether it is direct interaction or indirect interaction. So you may ask what register is. So register is, you can consider, if we talk about it directly, register is the equivalent to style that we know, yeah? So we have different registers and different styles. So actually register suggests that different styles of language are used in different contexts. So Wales said that register refers to a variety of language defined according to the situation. So as you may see, register is some kind of a variety of linguistic or language units that are used according to the situation, according to the context, according to the environment, etc., etc. And what about Halliday? Halliday told that register comprises three situational features. They are mode, or as we call it, medium, tone, or as some call it, tenor, and the semantic field. Now we are going to have a look at each of them. So there is a wonderful table that was developed by Gibbons and Whiteley, and by mode or medium, we understand, we highlight the type of the form of a communication. So actually this form of a communication distinguishes between the modes or channels of speech and writing. For instance, when we say the mode of communication is face-to-face, or it is a digital mode when we're talking or speaking or presenting something, demonstrating something digitally, or the mode is printing mode, yeah, printed mode when we are reading something from the papers, and that is the mode of the register. This is a kind of a feature, situational feature of register. Next is the tone. So actually tone, when you're talking to people, you may say, please do not apply that very tone of voice, tone of speech to me, right? When someone is talking in a very rude language or very rude way to you. So it's the same thing here. So it is about the relation between the participants of the conversation or of the any kind of a communication. So it is mainly about the role of the addresser and addressee. You guys may probably remember that Jakobson divided, after Köhler presented here, Jakobson divided people as addressers and addressees. So it's like teacher and students, or students and, sorry, not teacher and students, presenter and audience, yeah, writer and reader, as you say here, as you see here, sorry. So it is, so tone is kind of a relationship that can be observed in the tone that is relative to formality or informality. For instance, there is an orator and audience, and depending on the level of social relationship between the orator and audience, the tone can be differ from formal to informal, sorry, as you may see. And the next thing, the next feature is the semantic field, when the meaning relations in subject matter, yeah, sometimes we call the subject matter domain. It is when it is identified in the language of the text. So mainly the text that has been typed is the identifying factor. So it's a kind of a genre thing, yeah. So, or as we call it, style in Russian way. So genre and style is the same thing. Yeah. So for instance here, in the recipe genre, for instance, we will be expecting that there will be kind of a specific vocabulary for the recipe. For instance, we name the things that help us to cook or to bake, yeah, like whisk, or we call or coriander, bake. So we kind of waiting for the specific lexis from the particular genre's particular register. Okay, so let's have a look at the example. So example is given from epistolary novel. So what is an epistolary novel? You may probably read it. Usually Jane Austen and other British, mainly British and French writers, they has written, they are a novel in epistolary genre. Yeah, so it is when the novel is written in a form of document or in form of letters. You may probably met such kind of thing. Yeah, so it is kind of a the epistolary novel. It is a nice example for me to demonstrate to you how actually register works. So let's have a look at the example. So it is the 18th century epistolary novel that is called Pamela or Virtue Rewarded. The author is Samuel Richardson. So in her letter to her parents, yeah, Pamela wrote, "Dear father and mother, I have great trouble and some comfort to acquaint you with." So actually the medium of the written letter, so what is medium? You may remember mode, yeah. It is the form of communication between people. Yeah. Medium is quite formal, as you may see. It's a girl or a daughter who is writing to father and mother, right? So because it's a letter format, and this is the historical and and the novel is using the historical language, you may see from that very extract that Pamela is the having a daughterly devotion. She's having the respect for parents, and because of that, her format, her I would say tone, yeah, is quite formal. Yeah, so tone is very much formal, as you may see here. To acquaint with you, yeah, I have great trouble, and etc. etc. These words are demonstrating that one. And to be honest, this kind of register is called a high culture register, especially from the phrase "to acquaint you with" demonstrates the high culture well here. Yeah. So usually instead of writing "to acquaint you with" today, nowadays, yeah, in normal, not high culture, we say "to tell you about something," yeah, or to inform you about something. So this is kind of a high culture tone, high culture register. As you may see, history novels, they are good they demonstrate in a very nice way the register, different registers. And the very interesting thing that if you have a look at the let's say history, yeah, etymology of the word acquaint, you will find out the etymology of the history of the word acquaint comes from the Latin language. It comes from the Latin language and has the it is some kind of a equivalent to the word comfort, to the word trouble, yeah. And actually, I would say that in actually using these very kind of words, of high culture words, like to acquaint you with, it will show the very interesting things about the etymological features of the language, of the register. So, sorry. About this thing, Brighton Hope made a quite interesting point about the register, about the vocabulary that is being used in particular register. So they wrote that because of the historical association of Old French with the court and the law, and of French and Latin with learning, words derived from these sources tend to have a higher, like formal register than Old English or Old Norse ones. So it means that when you see when you use the vocabulary, the words from the Latin origin or French origin, it is considered that you are using a formal language mainly. So whereas words in English that are of um, Germanic origin, they are considered as mainly informal ones. That is a quite interesting thing, and I would like to say that is why you actually had a look at the etymology. So etymology is not only for funny stories about the particular words, but it's also about identification of the style or register, as we say. So, and the one more thing that I would like to highlight is that in that very statement by Pamela, yeah, I have great trouble and some comfort to acquaint you with. It is like it feels like the high formal register add the historical flavor, yeah, to the readers that live in 21st century. So it is kind of a, when you read it, you will understand that very text is not a contemporary one. It's like the comparison. So now let's have a look at the comparison um, of the novels, epistolary novels from different centuries. So you might probably know about the Stephen Chbosky's novel, The Perks of Being a Wallflower. Anyone remembers that one? Anyone who's watching indie films, you may probably remember the film with.
Yes, I have read and watched.
Okay, great, good. So here is in that very contemporary piece of literature, we may see that the target audience of the readership is mainly teenagers, right? So because of that, you will find out that the language itself in that very teenage, let's say young adult fiction, differs as well. So anyone could read. Gulbahar, could you read that very piece for us?
Dear friend, I'm writing to you because she said you listen and understand and didn't try to sleep with that person at that party, even though you could have.
Thank you very much. So as you may see here, the medium here is quite different that with the medium that was applied in the previous epistolary novel in Pamela, right? But as you may find out, the tone is clearly different. It's absolutely different. Why? Because it's less formal. Yeah. Let's have a look at one the one from Pamela again. Dear father and mother, I have great trouble and some comfort to acquaint you with. Whereas in here, dear friend, I'm writing to you because she said you listen and understand and didn't try to sleep with that person and that party, even though you could have. So this is absolutely, even though you read them and maybe in linguistic level, it is somehow the same. However, you may find out from the very tone of the letter of two letters that they are quite different. Yeah. So Why so? So if you have a look again to the start of the perks of being wallflower, you will find out that the author used the colloquial register here. First of all, we are noticing that vocabulary in that very piece is restricted to common words, yeah, like listen, understand, writing to you, she said, he said, sleep, though, yeah, they're quite party, they're quite like everyday speech languages. They are not formal, they're quite informal, vice versa. And the second thing that you may see from the syntactic level, that sentence is syntactically extended with two instances, and the coordinating conjunction "and" is like subordinating conjunctions here, yeah? And especially the nominal "that" clause that you may see here with "that person" and "at that party." It all shows that sentence is somehow was extended syntactically. So it means that one sentence has so much information in it, showing that the person may probably been quite emotional at that very time when writing these very words here. Very interesting, isn't it? And that is quite interesting, isn't it? So as you will find out when you will find out in the further analysis about the mode, that mode differs a lot not only according to the words that were used, but according to the syntax that is being used in the written speeches. Okay, let's continue with the analysis. So we have the euphemism here. The euphemism to sleep with, it's about the sexual intercourse, yeah, and it is not used in that very formal way that I am presenting you the synonyms, or the word party, yeah. So party is a kind of a everyday, like colloquial word for the words gathering or social interaction in that very sense. You may see even in Lexis, it differs a lot in that very way. So these words, these colloquial words, the euphemisms, they create the impression that creates that certain impression has to do with our knowledge of the context in which these sort of expressions are typically used, that lexical sets used in that very text can evoke some kind of a particular semantic field. So semantic field here is quite different, yeah, it's quite particular to the colloquial style. So here is the phrase "once upon a time." So I would like you to think about it and tell me what kind of events or what kind of genre comes to your mind first, and what are the main characters of that very text.
It's
In
usually
fairy
fairy tale.
Yes, it's usually we can be met in fairy tales.
Absolutely. Okie dokie. So, of course, it is mainly related to the genre of fairy tales. So probably, actually, we all know Once Upon a Time is directly connected with that very one. So, however, this kind of a classic fairy tale phrases can be connected to other registers as well. So now we are going to have a look, opening of the story. Yeah, okay. So let's have a look at the novel by Roxane Gay that is called An Untamed State. Who would like to read this one for us, please? Okay, let
Can I
me
read?
choose.
Henry.
Okay, can Midwir Tabianova read for us?
Once upon a time, in a far-off land, I was kidnapped by a gang of fearless yet terrified young men, with so much impossible hope beating inside. Their bodies it burned their very skin and strengthened their will right through their bones. They held me captive for 13 days. They wanted to break me. It was not personal. I was not broken. This is what I tell myself.
Okay, thank you, Midwir. So, guys, now, do you find this very novel as a fairy tale? Do you identify it as a fairy tale? No. Once upon a time in a far-off land, I was kidnapped by a gang of fearless yet terrified young men with so much impossible hope beating inside their bodies, it burned their very skin, strengthened their will right through their bones. Can we consider these lines, these awful, horrific lines, as a fairy tale?
No, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is not at all a fairy tale. So actually, even though the novel opens with this an adjunct element containing two prepositional phrases, so both of which actually evoke the semantic field of fairy tale, and our narrative expectation are disrupted, quickly disrupted by the main clause, I was kidnapped by a gang of fearless yet terrified young men. Yeah, that is so the verbs kidnapped and the noun gang, they belong to absolutely different lexical set. They belong to extremely different genre, yeah, colloquial genre, or the genre of criminal genre, yeah, the genres that are associated with violence. So there is no happily ever after. It is not about the fairy tales. So this is the technique, as we call here. The technique that has been used here is called re-registration or register mixing, and particularly in the Once Upon a Time thing, in Untamed State, there was used a register mixing. So let us first of all have a look at the re-registration. So in order to create particular effects on readers, literary works may shift the registers. So in that what is re-registration? It is a kind of a technique where the supposed documents such as newspaper articles or letters, they are reproduced within literary contexts. So instead of using for instance, instead of using some kind of a official style, we may use the literary lexis in the newspapers. Though this is a kind of a widespread practice in in a in a creative writing or any kind of writing. Yeah. So registration takes place. It's a kind of quite a nice technique, sorry, used by journalists mainly. So I have several friends, journalist friends, and they use re-registration quite often. All right. While what about register mixing? So register mixing actually was discussed, widely discussed by Mr. Leach. You may probably heard about this very linguist in his work that was published in 1969. He gave definition to register mixing as it is the mixing when a range of different registers and varieties are used within a single text. So this very opening, to the novel is the pure example of register mixing. So actually the author is mixing a fairy tale register with the register that is associated with crime. Yeah. So if you have a look at that very extract, you can know that you can find out, you can note to yourself which words belong to which lexical set. You will find it out. You will analyze it yourselves, I think. So let's think why Roxane Gay used that very register mixing thing. So actually, as we already have mentioned, register shift happens in the main clause, I was kidnapped, and actually it creates semantic deviation, kind of a semantic deviation, and it is consequently like a shocking to readers. So when you read Once Upon a Time in Far Off Land, you may probably wait for, or you may probably are being excited about some kind of a fairy tale thing that is having the happy ending thing, but it's shocking you, shocking the readers. So moreover, it is clearly highlighting the harrowing experience that the hero of the story has experienced in her life, or in his life, I don't know, I think of her life. So here the narrator is somehow trying to find a way to understand what has happened to her, and and she's trying to maintain her own self-worth through that very shift. And if you have a look at the constructions, like it was not personal, I was not broken, the narrator is portraying, it is being portrayed that the narrator is refusing to be weakened by that very event. So she's like refusing to be demonstrated as a weak person, in other words. Yeah, so even though the final sentences, this is what I tell myself, this is kind of a poignant admissions, it suggests that not broken, I was not broken, it was not personal, is a kind of a lie. And actually the use of that very fairy tale register is a kind of a mean for the narrator to mask the pain and to reason that the experience that happened to her is of some sort of a higher purpose, has a higher purpose here. So it's a kind of an interesting thing, even though we do not think about the register, the change of the register in that very way. It is showing a lot in terms of the semantic field, in terms of the hidden philosophy or hidden thoughts of the narrator that is being demonstrated and represented through the changes in the register. Okay, next thing is about the lexical semantics. We are going to have a look at the synonyms and antonyms. So actually, if we have a look at we before discussed, that the history of English explains why there are so many synonyms in English, that they come from other languages as well. So what I would like you to tell that in the result of the evolution of English became rather rich, in its vocabulary, in point of view of lexical semantics. So when the originally West Germanic language and English, they came into contact with Latinate language through the influence of French mainly. Yeah. So and after the people happened to learn the usage of Romance vocabulary, like Latin vocabulary, Greek vocabulary, French, and even Italian and Spanish, there happened that very renaissance in cultural renaissance in English as well. So what I would like to say here, that the knowledge, considering the etymology of words, knowing the etymology of words, actually can inform our knowledge of the tone of discourse, as we have already said and have already discussed it in the very beginning. So when people are using some kind of a higher culture language, it shows that they are using mainly the words that were borrowed to English language, I would say, and vice versa. So actually, if you have a look at the words quaint and tell, yeah, we may find out that there are many, many other synonyms as inform, impart, rise, advise, enlighten. And even though these synonyms do not have the identical meaning, some people try to use them also in different contexts. Yeah, they are using them in the different contexts, and sometimes they use them in the similar ones. So let's have a look at the example. Here it says Sarah told Alison that she had done the washing up, or Sarah advised Alison that she had done the washing up. Do you see any kind of, do you witness here any kind of a change in tone because of the different words that were used, guys? So we have the verbs told and advised.
Mhm.
Do you see any differences in meaning and tone here?
I think in the first situation, when Sarah told Alison, it's mean like you should do it, you must do it, in this tone. While in the second one, advised, it's to say не так настойчиво, как совет.
So in which one of them, thank you very much, Arsen. Which one of them sound more natural to you?
To us, maybe told.
Okay, so told is mostly associated with the everyday speech, colloquial speech, isn't it? And whereas advised is some a kind of a high culture thing. So some, okay, Schulder says one is for must, second is for should. Yeah, so it has different semantics as well. Yeah, very interesting that from that very example, you may see that actually register and lexical semantics, they are hugely interrelated. So the usage of your words are showing, demonstrating the register that you are using. So now let's talk about the synonyms more. So actually in literature, synonyms, they mainly used to avoid that very monotonous repetition of particular lexemes. Yeah. So let's have a look at the example. Yeah. This is the example, sorry, this is the poem by the poet, American romantic poet Edgar Allan Poe, you may probably know, and Sorry. And the poem is called The City in the Sea. It actually poem imagines it's kind of a dreadful sunken city at the bottom of the ocean. Yeah, so it's not the bikini bottom. It's a quite a dreadful one, dreadful city. Okay, who would like to read that one for us? Let me just. Dilara is the one who understood that joke. Thank you very much. Okay, Diana Nita, could you please read the poem for us?
Okay, teacher. For no ripples curl Alice along the wilderness of glass, no swellings tell that winds may be upon saying far off happier sea, no havings hint that winds have been on seas less hideously serene.
Okay, sorry, I'm very sorry we cannot hear you properly. Then Latif Said Ahmed, please, could you read for us? Okay, Latif is not with us. Okay, so I'm going to make sure that everyone can hear it. So Laura Yadava, could you please read it for us? I know that you're in.
Yes, for sure. For no ripples curl, alas, along the wilderness of glass, no swellings tell that winds may be upon some far-off happier sea, no havings hint that winds have been on seas less hideously serene.
Thank you very much. Lovely reading. Okay, guys. So let's now try to identify the synonyms in the following lines of the poem.
Can we say that swellings and havings hint are the same?
Swellings and what?
Havings hint.
Yeah, we can. Of course, they are the synonyms, I would say. Yeah, as well as ripples, swellings, and havings. They are all the same, quite the same meaning. Thank you very much. Any syntactic or synonymic sets that you may find out here, guys? No, havings hint that winds have been on seas less hideously severe. No swellings tell that winds may be upon some far sea. If you have a look at the verbs, you will find out some synonymic sets. Okay, so if you have a look at the verbs, tell here, no swellings, tell that winds may be, and the verb no hint here, no havings, hint that winds have been. So actually, tell and hint, they are producing the same meaning. So that hint, giving a hint, that подсказывать, or tell, to tell, they are of in that very context, in the context of the city in the sea, it is producing the same meaning of telling or of informing. Whereas, as Laura has noted, ripples, swellings, and havings, they also denote they also signify the same thing. They also three of them, they signify waves here. Yeah, and actually, in the very beginning of the poem, Edgar Allan Poe is using the phrase luminous waves. So these are the words that are having a look, are focusing on the waves. So what I would like to tell you here, guys, before going off to the break, that interesting thing that in order to avoid repetitive monotonous repetition, the Edgar Allan Poe used these synonyms, and even though it is quite difficult for you as second language learners to identify it, but the more you read the poem, you could have identified the same, particularly same meaning of the synonymic sets here. And the very interesting thing that you may probably find out that in that very extracts, in that very lines, you could find out or could observe some kind of parallelisms. And that would be lovely if you could have a look at that very parallelisms later. But there is no repetition for sure. Okie dokie. We are seeing each other in 10 minutes then. Okay. See you later. Okie dokie. Antonyms. Good. Okay, so as you may have seen, how Alan Poe used that very used those very synonyms in order not to make the repetition of mundane and boring words. Yeah, not to tell, not to use the word tell over and over again. And he used the word hint, or not repeating the word waves. He used the words as ripples, swellings, and heavings. Okie dokie. Now let's have a look at the opening of that very poem, where Poe is using both synonyms and antonyms. So I would like someone to read that one as well. So can Marjan Janabayeva read it for us? Okay, seems like how will we say it? Past form in. I don't know. You can have a look at the Google. Okay, Sumbat's Marot. That would be lovely if you could read it for us.
Yes, teacher.
Thank you.
Lo, this has reared himself a throne in a strange city lying alone, far down within the dim west, where the good and the bad and the worst and the best have gone to their eternal rest.
Thank you very, very much. Okay, so guys, you may probably have noted that there are some antonyms presented as well. So what are the antonyms?
Good
Good,
and bad,
worse
worse
and
and bad.
best.
worst and best, good and bad. Yeah, lovely. So in the fourth line here, yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, Poe used two sets of antonyms. Yeah, first of all is the evaluative adjectives good and bad, and the next he used the superlative worst and best. So that's a very interesting thing, that he juxtaposes the ordering of these pairs. He's like presenting the positive adjective first, like good, yeah. But in the second pair, he presented the negative one as the first, as the leading one, the worst. Yeah, quite interesting. So to be honest here, the good and bad ones, they are gradable antonyms. We call them gradable. So they other gradable pairs of antonyms as dark and light, hot and cold, fast and slow, happy and sad. It's like the grading, a grade that is coming down from positive to negative. And so what I would like to highlight that here the author wanted to say that just because something is not good, it does not necessarily is bad. Yeah, so it could be some kind of all right, for instance. So he's making like a game for you in order to identify the level of goodness and badness here. Righty. What about here? What he wanted to use by what he wanted to demonstrate by usage of these gradable antonyms, that Poe wanted to demonstrate that the dead people represent all types of men, both good and bad. Yeah. So here, Poe probably suggested that death does not distinguish virtue. It is like inescapable for everyone, for any kind of people, for all souls, for all mortal souls, so that we cannot cannot avoid death, whether we are good or bad, worse than or best. It's about that very one. Okay. And I would wanted to have a look at the other types of gradable antonyms. They're gradable antonyms, but they have a different form of antonymic pairing, and they are called mutually exclusive complementaries. So what are they? They are the pairs in which, if one of the antonym is applicable, the possibility of the different one is excluded. Yeah, if in the gradable one both dark and light and good and bad could be applied, but here only one of them is applicable. For instance, dead and alive, true or false, present, absent, pass or fail, yeah, awake or asleep. It's about it. One more category of antonyms that are called relational opposites here. They also include mutually dependent converses and reversive opposites. Yeah, what they do, the relational opposites, they display some kind of symmetry in meaning, some kind of a no similarity or similar wholesomeness, as give and receive, buy and sell, teacher, pupil, employer, employee. It's like making something whole, providing a symmetry in the context. It's about the relational opposites. All right, the next one is we are going to consider the equivalence and opposition. So it's purely about syntaxes here and some of the usage of the semantics as well. So what is the equivalence? Actually, synonymic and antonymic relations, they can be created through some kind of a textual structures. And equivalence and opposition can be generated by syntax, by the order of words in the sentences. And we are going to have a look at the several tables where that was that were developed by Jeffries in 2010. And those tables, they are summarizing the common syntactic triggers of equivalence and opposition, and you will find out what equivalence and opposition is. But before that, I would like you to have a look at the terms as hyponyms and hypernyms. So what are hyponyms? So the words that are specific instances of a particular meaning category, of semantic category or semantic field, they are called hyponyms. For instance, white and black, orange and black, they are examples of a hyponym of color. So it's a class of color. And the general class of color, yeah, color in that very situation is the color, it is the hypernym. So the types, the orange and black, they are hyponyms, and the color itself is hypernym. Okie dokie, now let's have a look at the, at the table that I promised we are going to have a look at. So it's about the syntactic triggers of equivalence. So what is the triggers of equivalence? If you have a look at the first one, so here X is Y, right? Orange is the new black. It's like they are equivalating orange to black, and it is called intensive relational equivalence. It's when A appears as B, A appears as becomes as B, yeah, two different things are being equated to each other. Or in that very one, we have three categories that are having some kind of similarities or are grouped into one category, like women, fire, and dangerous things. Yeah. So these are called appositional equivalents. So they are using some kind of apposition. Next one is when the metaphors are being used here. When A is B, it's like a kind of a relational, in a relational sense. The quiet of the dark. It's like the quiet is being common to a dark. So it's a kind of a metaphorical equivalence. Yeah, life is like a box of chocolates. If you probably remember that very expression from the wonderful film Forrest Gump. Life is like a box of chocolates. So when X is being, yeah, Forrest Gump, absolutely, is being equivalent to Y through usage of metaphors, through usage of similes, and other stylistic devices. Okay, what about the apposition? What is the apposition thing? You may probably remember about the example about him not having the war and her not having a baby. We are going to discuss it later. But let's have a look at the other types of opposition. So if we have a look at the examples, cars, not babies, it's not a tool, it's an idea. It is when A is not being B. It is called negated opposition. What about transitional opposition? It is when something A turns to B. Turn water into wine, as Jesus made that one, right? Turn something into something different. Next one is comparative opposition, when comparative adjectives are being used mainly. Something A is better than blah blah B, for instance. So more ignorant than happy. Yes, here it's also the opposing ones. Well, replacive opposition, when we are using conjunctions or alternatives. Something A instead of B, or I prefer A rather than B. Yeah, sad instead of bereft. So quite an interesting one. Okay, next opposition type of opposition is the concessive opposition. When we're using concessive conjunctions, and I really much love this type of opposition, to be honest, I'm using it a lot in my speech. So when we're saying despite A and B, or A yet B, yeah, in that very sense. Despite rain, the sun shone, fearful yet excited. It's like at the same time, it is those opposition in equivalence, in my opinion, to be honest. And the next is the explicit opposition, when B is being compared or opposed with A or X. Yeah, here given as an X is being contrasted with Y, yeah, comfortable rather than wealthy. So in that very sense, types of the oppositions. Well, we have syntactic triggers of both equivalence and opposition. Let's have a look what they are. What are these triggers? What the triggers are? So we have the parallelism, syntactic parallelism that we actually already discussed. They may trigger equivalence. This kind of a syntactic way of creating sentences, they produce the equivalence or opposition depending on the context. For instance, he liked words, she liked gymnastics. So it's like the opposition, in my opinion, here, right? Like the author is showing that two people are having different tastes in that very sense. And contrastive ones, using the contrastive conjunctions. She felt tired but happy. One more thing is very interesting, isn't it? When we're using the conjunctions, the syntactic, in a syntactic way, we're showing opposition or equivalence. Quite interesting. Okay, now let's have a look at the example that we discussed in the previous week. No, on week when we discussed the foregrounding ones. Yeah. So here it's the short story Living with Contradictions by Lynn Tillman, and it is written, he didn't want to fight in any war, and she didn't want to have a child. You may probably remember, guys, right? Yeah. So what is that? What kind of syntactic foregrounding is happening here? Who does remember that?
Like the
Parallelism?
parallel, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Parallelism. Parallelism is making a big deal out of it, isn't it? Yeah, quite interesting is that here war and child actually they are not opposites, right? But the parallel construction, the parallelism it constructs them as the conflicting desires of those two characters. Yeah, it's kind of an interesting thing. He didn't want to fight, and she didn't want to have a child, and both war and child is being because the parallelism constructing them as the two different conflicting desires between of two characters, he and she. Yeah, that's the very nice example of the syntactic parallelism. Again, sorry. Okay, now let's have a look at the short story by Jonathan Safran Foer. So it is also used the parallel structures. Yeah. And that would be lovely if you guys now discuss what kind of structures, parallel structures, you are finding out in here. Actually, the piece of that very short excerpt was already discussed in the previous lecture as well. But there we had considered different different, let's say, features, yeah, different syntactic features. But now I would like you to have a look at the oppositions and equivalences here. Would you please have a look at it in 5 minutes and prepare your answers? That would be lovely. 5 minutes to find out the parallel structures and have a look at the negation, oppositions probably, or maybe equivalence, equations, sorry. Oh my god, my head is going to explode. No. Any ideas?
Guess we can find here two main parallel structures, right? Like I was not, that's one is the negation, like I was not good at, I was not decisive, I was not able, I was not just tired. And the second one is just I was just and the verb ing.
So you think it's a negated opposition?
No, I'm talking about like the parallel structures. Not
All right, okay, yep.
Positions I wasn't, I was.
So yeah, absolutely, yep. Any comments, Timberland? Okay, Timberland rejects the answer. Anything that you have probably noticed, guys? Any ideas? Any structures?
I mean, oppositions is I wasn't, I was. Yeah.
Okay, so the same thing that Laura suggested. All right, so let's have a look at the small analysis. So as you may see, the the sentences here are divided into they were numbered, yeah. So that would be lovely if we now be careful in listening. So if we have a look at sentence 1 and if we have a look at sentence 2, we may see that both of them form an example of negated opposition. So how by giving the impression that the reason the narrator is not good at drawing faces is because he was just joking the most of the time here. Yeah, like the negative opposition. I was not good at drawing faces. I was just joking most of the time. It's like seems like he was not good at drawing faces because he was joking. So he was like wasting his time. Yeah, in that very sense. And if we have a look at the third sentence, I wasn't decisive in changing rooms or anywhere. Yeah, it creates a contrastive opposition between rooms and anywhere. So what is helping to develop that contrastive opposition is the conjunction or. I was not decisive in changing rooms or anywhere. Yeah, rooms are being being contra being how we call rooms, and anywhere they are. I forgot. Негативном плане, yeah, in that very sense. Okay, what about sentence 4? It's not creating any equivalence, but if we have a look at the conjunction, subordinative conjunction, because here I was so late because I was looking for flowers. Yeah, you may find out that this conjunction sets some kind of a causal relationship between the narrator's acts of looking for flowers, yeah, and their lateness. So, like the because is making the causal relationship between him being late and his act of looking for flowers. Very interesting thing. And in terms of sentences 5, 6, and 7, they do not feature any kind of equivalence or opposition, but here you may find out the repetition of the structure. So it's like the I was not, yeah, through blah, blah, blah. I was not able, I was just going, I was not tired. This is the repetition of the similar structure. And that probably that was written in order to make an impression or make an illusion of continuing pattern, that the actions of that person is continuing over and over again. Probably in that very sense, this was the reason why the foregrounding was used by Jonathan Safran Fourier. All right. Okie dokie. Now let's have a look at the notion of cohesion. We probably know what cohesion is, right, guys? So I bet you discussed what cohesion is at the classes of academic English. And if you guys know anything about it, that would be lovely if you share your the definition for the word cohesion. So what is cohesion for you?
Cohesion is like relationship between sentences that they have somehow a logical connection between each other in the text.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Sultanat. So the unity, says Midwert. Yeah. So cohesion is about the connection, about the relation. So Holiday and Hassan, they highlighted that cohesion is about relations of meaning, particularly meaning that exists in the text, that exists within the text, helps make connection between meanings. Okay, helps to what? What are that words then?
Helps
Make your paragraphs clear. Okay, Eldos made it. Okay, yeah, thank you very much. So one more thing, one more feature about the cohesion, that cohesion helps to define the relations as a text, the thoughts as a text. So it creates the text, we would say. And one more thing, that boring thing, probably you will find it boring, but I find it quite easy peasy. You will find it easy peasy as well. So these are the central forms of cohesion. The table was again developed by Khalid and Hassan. They gave a wonderful description of cohesion, and the forms, one of the forms, the first one is the reference. So what is the reference? It is the usage of grammar, words, to reference a word or to reference a phrase that is used elsewhere, somewhere in the text. So mainly references are personal pronouns. So what it is, for instance, when we say Robert likes flowers, yeah, he is a delicate person. So he here is the pronoun that is being demonstrating the reference of cohesion. So actually the reference is helping to make the whole text, is helping to create the wholesomeness in the text. And I would like to highlight that there are two types of references. The first one is ex ofora, when we are referring to some kind of notions that are outside the text. It's like the situational reference. And in dophora, when the reference, when we're referring to something within the text, it's like the textual in dophora, textual reference, as we call it. And Endeavour itself has two different types itself. So the first one is anaphora, that is referring to the preceding text. It's like Robert likes the flowers. He is a delicate man, right? So he here is the anaphora. Or cataphora, that refers to, anaphora refers to the preceding text that is coming, like he likes the flowers because Robert is a delicate man. Yeah, so this is the anaphora. And cataphora is when the reference is referring again, let's say, to the succeeding text that is being coming text. Yeah, so it's a Robert likes the flowers. He's a delicate man in that very sense. Okay, and next form of the cohesion is the substitution. It is when grammatical function words are used in order to replace words or phrases. So they are mostly the pronouns, demonstrative pronouns, like this, that, these, those, or the impersonal pronoun that we use in contemporary texts. One, yeah, impersonal pronoun one. And the auxiliary verbs as do, yeah, it's like a dummy auxiliary verb do. So this is about the substitution. Instead of saying, instead of repeating the phrase or word, we are using those substitutions. So this is the substitution thing. What is the ellipsis? It is omission of the words, leaving out the words and phrases, because the omission, actually, the content or missed content can be easily predicted by the reader. Yeah, so ellipsis is used in order to avoid the unnecessary repetition. You will find out in the during the analysis, you will find out a lot of ellipses because authors are not mentioning some phrases and words in order not to produce the unnecessary repetition. Conjunction, it is when we are using conjunction in order to get together some textual elements. So any use of conjunction is a kind of a conjunction, central form of cohesion. Next one is called lexical cohesion. It is repeating the items, the lexical items. So we classify 3 forms of lexical cohesion. First of all is the repetition. And what is repetition? It is the repetition of the similar or identical words or phrases. Yeah. So actually, parallelism is also can be the part of repetition here. Next form of the lexical cohesion is the lexical relation. It is when we are using semantic forms such as synonyms and antonyms or hoponyms. That the example that was demonstrated in the poem by Edgar Allan Poe about the Bikini Bottom. And the collocations, when we are using words or phrases that have the tendency to reoccur together in the text. So this is it about the central forms of cohesion. Actually, most of them were discussed. The new ones only ellipsis and substitution as well as reference for you maybe. But we discussed conjunction at the last week, at last week's lecture. And lexical cohesion, we already discussed the repetition and parallelism weeks ago. So I think it's quite an easy thing for you to understand. So, sorry. We are going to have an assignment, and I will of course upload that very assignment to the Moodle, and I would like to announce that this assignment should be downloaded to the Moodle. So let me just repeat it in Kazakh. So bizde assignment болады, бірақ та ол assignment'ты біз Moodle'ға жүктейміз. Маған Gmail'ға емес, Moodle'ға жүктесеңіздер болады. Ол үшін мен Moodle'ға лекцияны жүктегеннен соң, мен сіздерге осы assignment'ты орындауға жүктеуге не жасап қоямын. Как его? Oh my god, I forgot. Орнындай, как специальный. I forgot how it is called. Форма или как, что. Ну, будет на Moodle такая функция, чтобы загрузить assignment. So the deadline will be is going to be quite vague, I understand, but I would like you to finish it by 8th of December. Все будет, конечно, на Moodle, все время подробно, но до следующей среды, до 12 часа дня я хотела бы, чтобы вы сдали. И что я хочу сказать, если даже будет просрочка на минуту, жұмыс қабылданбайды. Сол үшін бір жарым апталарыңыз бар ма, сол бір жарым аптада жақсылап тұрып, дайындап, жасап анализді осы поэмға уақытысында тапсырғандарыңыз жөн. Okay, so yeah, that's it about the assignment. It is going to be the last graded assignment that is going to be graded. Дальше мы будем на следующей неделе мы будем писать не final, господи, как мы называем? Митку, yeah? Митка, сразу говорю, будет в формате multiple choice, and там будут 2 или 3, возможно, open-ended questions, but mainly you will have the multiple choice questions, so do not worry about it.
Will be about stylistics.
Pardon?
Will be about stylistics.
Yep. The second midterm will be dedicated to the unit of stylistics, not lexicology. Final exam у вас 21 декабря in 1 to 3 weeks. In 3 weeks, guys, 3 weeks only left. Так что давайте к final экзаменам готовьтесь. Те, кто якобы учится на онлайне, не приходит на семинары, бойтесь, потому что final будет офлайн. и онлайн я принимать не буду. Так что уақытылы келесіздер, там вам наверняка скеджул дадут. Но пока сказали, это, конечно, не окончательная версия, не утвержденная, я не говорю не окончательная, не утвержденная версия, но пока решили, что будет final по TFL 3.3 по лексикологии и стилистике будет во вторник, 21 декабря. So please be prepared. Барлығын қарап жүріңіздер, барлығын қайталап жүріңіздер. Все будет... читить. Сразу говорю, кто будет читить, у того будет дисквалификация. Вы сами знаете, я ни с кем не церемонюсь деген сияқты, так что, пожалуйста, жақсылап, should we use an assignment. Темірлан, do not worry, everything will be on the Moodle. Там будет полный анализ для этого. Is it possible for you to explain the exam in English? Of course, the exam will be explained in English, purely in English. About now. Okay, the final exam is going to be taken on 21st of December again. So no cheating allowed, no phones are allowed. All the phones will be collected from you. One more thing that I would like you to remember, that that you have to repeat all the lectures. So the exam will be the exam will include itself the multiple choice questions mainly again, but you will find out you will see the analysis as well. In the part of the stylistics, there will be questions on the analysis of particular poems. For the lexicology, it's going to be the theory again. Please have a good look through the theories that we covered, in the very beginning. Even small information, for instance, on the derivational process, types of affixation, types of derivation, types of words, functional types of words, structural types of words, all of them will be included as well. Also, the most important thing that that will be covered in the exam is the if I'm not mistaken, I'm not mistaken, you will be dedicated to the semantics of English and etymology. Are we allowed to have our notes? Nope, you will not be able to use the notes at all. So please keep everything in your minds. What else? As well, you will not be allowed to use the notes at the at the second midterm as well. So please do not cheat. So the second midterm is kind of a preparation for the final. And one more thing, so please just repeat everything that we covered at the course of lexicology and stylistics, and that will be fine. I think I'm not going to include too many like very, very small, very detailed notions that you may not remember. We will have I will be checking your understanding of the content, course content, on the deep understanding of the course content. Так что зубрежка и такое-сякое, оно будет бесполезно для вас. Так что if you are going to be prepared for the exam, I would like to know that you have to understand what you are reading, what you are learning. Again, I know that there are several students who have not even opened the lectures, who have not listened or watched the lectures, and probably they are not here today with us. You can tell them to your friends, to your mates, to your group mates, that they have to understand everything. If they will not understand anything, they will not succeed at the exam. What was the question? The last question that we see. in final exam will be text and we should do analysis. Yes, Miriam, there will be analysis as well. There will be texts, there will be poems, so both poem and the narrative texts will be included in the analysis. So, but anyway, you will have some variants to choose in the answers. So it's going to be the multiple choice one. We do not rely on your interpretation in the final exam. I will just give you varieties, variety of choices, so you have to choose the best answer for your analysis. Okay, this is actually it. If you have any questions regarding the topic that we covered today, or regarding the assignment, or regarding the I don't know midterm or exam, please, you are a lot welcome to ask me now. Nope. Okay. Seems like everyone understood everything. Okie dokie. Have a lovely day today. I will be sharing the information on the assignment, on the last assignment, in 2 days. I try my best to include everything today, but I'm not sure about it. Okay. Have a lovely day. Have a lovely week. See you on the seminars. Thank you for participating. I really enjoyed your active participation. Special thanks to Rasalda. Well done, Rasalda. Thank you. Bye bye. Take care.